We allocated funding for fiscal year 16-17, $35,000. And we have here Melinda Casillas, our management analyst, who will discuss the allocations of that today. So, Melinda?
Good afternoon. So as Ray mentioned, during the fiscal year 16-17 budget, we allocated or your board allocated $35,000 towards economic development. That's a $10,000 increase over last year's budget, with the idea that we would consider the Monterey Business Economic Partnership's request for inclusion in the economic development funding. The recommendation that we have for this year is the same funding levels as last year, with the inclusion of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. Originally, last year they had asked for $10,000, which is why the budget was increased $10,000. However, recent communication with them is they're requesting $5,000. So there's basically an extra $5,000 that is being recommended for future projects, if you wish to do that. The organizations that we provided funding for last year, San Bernardino County Chamber of Commerce, just to give you a little update, they have a big presence, a big social media presence in the community also. The Economic Development Corporation, if you recall, last year, we basically were not able to reach them. It took a lot of tries to get in touch with them. And then this year, they have actually done a lot of work, especially with CalLEAP, and they've I gave you a package of reports that they've put together this year. And then the Monterey County Business Council, they work with local businesses on trying to obtain different tax credits and working with other governmental agencies. And then the Monterey Business Economic Partnership is a tri-county, just to remind you, it's a tri-county partnership with Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Bernardino County. San Bernardino County has very little presence with them right now because we are not a member, and this would allow us to be a member with their partnership. If you have any questions or comments that I can answer for you.
Yeah.
Supervisor Patella?
Yeah, on the Monterey Business Economic Partnership, is my understanding, and maybe Mr. Johnson will answer this, but Economic Development Corporation was joined that group as well. Are we have kind of duplications of membership there? Is that something that we're looking for? That both us,
the Business
County,
Economic Partnership?
on a Monterey Business Economic Partnership, that's right.
Right, is a tri-county partnership.
Right, okay. And who's going to attend those meetings and, and represent San Bernardino County?
I have attended a couple of their, they've had some economic summits that they've put together and stuff. I was very impressed with the ones that I've gone to. You can designate somebody else to go.
No. It's as long as we're put $5,000 into, it says Monterey Business Economic Partnership, and right off it doesn't say Monterey San Bernardino
right.
Business Economic Partnership, and I just wonder how are we to measure a return on that membership?
So the meeting that I went to, they did talk about economic indicators, and they had the economic indicators with Monterey County and Santa Cruz County. They really didn't have anything with San Bernardino County. And at that meeting, there obviously was very little representation from San Bernardino County. Basically, myself and Christina Chavez-Wyatt were at that meeting.
Aaron,
Yeah.
EDC. And so do we, I don't know if EDC is, enough to be at that
To be
meeting
at
to
that meeting.
represent us, or do we need to fill 3 seats and spend $5,000 and then, I'm not 100% certain that we'll show enough of a return on that. That's kind of what I'm a little concerned about, and perhaps other speakers will kind of weigh in on it, I
Okay.
guess, too.
And I believe, did Ms. Roberts send you any comments?
She
or
sent it
remember-
to Clerk of the Board, Valdez.
I just got it.
Oh, you did?
like 10
Okay.
minutes ago.
Okay.
Would you like me to print that out and bring it to the board?
Do you guys want
because
it?
she told me she had to leave, and
Okay.
I said, well, you can text me the information and I'll share it.
Thank you,
But
Louis.
She texted me and said that she was doing it through the chair of the board. which
Okay.
is good. I mean, the
the clerk.
clerk of the board.
Okay.
So we'll have that information for you in just a moment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from staff?
No, but I think Supervisor Patella brings a good point, that we need to see a return, no matter how small our investment is. We need to be able to, the organizations need to be able to show us what they're doing for San Benito County. I know that the Monterey partnership is regional, and any kind of promotion, any kind of advertise, San Benito County is included in there. To what extent, I don't know, but it would be important for us to find out what it is. So I think the clerk of the board will present that.
Okay. Okay, so no other questions or comments at this time? Okay, so I think what we'll do is open it up to public comment.
Okay, we have Brian Turlington.
I filled out a proper card for you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair, Supervisors, staff. My name is Brian Turlington. I'm the Executive Director of the Monterey County Business Council. And just so you know, for clarification, on the original Articles of Incorporation for the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, I am the President. Mary Ann Leffel, the President of the Monterey County Business Council, sits on the board of the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, as so do a number of other of our executive committee members. So I'm happy to answer some questions about the MBEP, its vision, what it's trying to do. But I'm here to speak on behalf of the Monterey County Business Council. And we are the host organization for the Monterey Bay Procurement and Technical Assistance Center. That's the Monterey Bay PTAC. And what the PTAC does is it helps businesses get registered and certified to go after state, local, and federal contracts. The PTAC is administered by the Defense Logistics Agency, and we, the host organization, the Monterey County Business Council, we enter into a contract with the Department of Defense, and we service counties that are assigned to us. Right now, we're assigned 15 counties in California, 3 of those being the Tri-County region of Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and San Benito County. So in this past year, for your $2,000 last year, what happened is our PTAC program manager, Terry Williams, has worked closely with a number of businesses in your area. We did a direct mailing to all the businesses that we could locate to let them know of our services. We increased our client base by 33%. Please understand that San Benito County clients, or any client of the PTAC, they do not pay for the PTAC services. Those services are free. What we do as the host organization, we then invoice the federal government, and for a distressed county such as San Benito County, we get 75 cents back on the dollar, which means my job is to go out and find that quarter so that we can keep on providing PTAC services. Ms. Williams, our program manager, was over here this year in May for a presentation with Wayne Goss of the Department of General Services Administration about contracting with the state government here in California. She came back in June for an event put on the San Benito County Business Council, Meet the Experts, and presented, and she works daily with clients from this area. So I'm happy to answer anything about the PTAC. In turn, the Business Council, we provide administrative and logistical support for the Central Coast Broadband Consortium. And San Benito County is present on our monthly conference calls. And thanks to your CAO, Mr. Espinoza, in January, we convened a meeting right here in these chambers to apply for an extension of funding from the state CASF, the California Advanced Services Fund, so that we could continue to do broadband work we're doing in this region. Mr. Espinoza gave a great presentation. We also work closely with your Workforce Development Board. We had Stuart Knox, who's the Executive Director of the State Employment Training Panel in April about employment training credits. So I just want you to understand, yes, we're Monterey County Business Council, but we have a regional impact and a regional focus, and we love to partner with you and make sure you're included in the work we do.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that was a big selling point last year when we awarded the $2,000, which is that PTAC.
Right.
And I think it's a big selling point for us now, too. Do you have any idea how many contracts were awarded, or if any?
I can get you that. The number I have is grossly inflated because I have it from USA government, and it includes specific scientific and Mr. Barr's contract, which really inflates the things. And to be quite candid, we did not assist Mr. Barr in getting that contract, but I'm more than happy to have our program manager send you those numbers.
That'll be fine. Thanks.
Okay.
Julie Vieira.
They all should have that. The one I sent is good.
Let's see.
Unless they have a copy.
This one I gave them all a copy of.
That's the old one, yeah. And so then this was the new one.
You want that
Yes.
one?
Oh. Good afternoon. I'm Julie Vieira. I'm the CEO of the San Benito County. Oh, it looks like you guys are all reading something else, so I'll wait. You ready for me, or are you? Okay. Thank you. I'm Julie Vieira from the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to thank you guys for the consideration in funding the tourism efforts over the past year and for this year going forward. At my presentation in, I believe it was April, you guys all received this packet of information and what we have done and accomplished and what we're going to do going forward. Supervisor Botello asked me to bring back this information regarding what funds others had put into the tourism effort. So since the Chamber took over in February 2015, other members of the community have put in $56,548 into tourism efforts. And I broke it down. If you want it broken down anymore, please stop by my office. I'll be happy to do that. Our members have the opportunity to give a $25 extra volunteer donation when they pay their membership. So that's where the $3,420 come from. We had FAM tours with 4 different groups of riders that have come in. So we had lodging at $4,850 that was donated towards those riders and photographers that came in. We had attractions and product. We had meals. And then recently, the Chamber took on the effort of redoing the visitor/economic development / visitor guide. We're putting it all into one. And the members of the Chamber put in $45,536. That came from Chamber members who are advertising in that piece of literature that can be used for economic development, that can be used for tourism, that can be used for relocation packages. So I hope that answered your question that you had last time. So that is a significant amount, I think, for the last 18 months that our Chamber members have put into the tourism effort. And I would like the Council to consider increasing our portion of the allocation, only because we have a lot of projects that are in the hopper that are going forward that are going to really get San Benito County out there, not only for tourism but for economic development and bringing in more people to our community on a long-term basis. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions?
No? Okay,
Kira,
thank you. Greg had, he couldn't be here this afternoon. He had another meeting.
Marty Richmond.
Good afternoon, and you know your real friends are the ones who come back after lunch. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I have a simple message for you. That's not enough money. It shows a lack of seriousness when you look at it. You know, my good friend Archimedes, I just saw him the other day, said, give me a place to stand and a lever and I will move the earth. That's not enough money to be either a place to stand or a lever. You know, if we could fill up 50 more rooms a night in hotels, you'd walk away, even at the current TOT rate, with about $400,000 a year more. Your current take from in the unincorporated area from in 2014, you took in $1,400,000 in sales tax. Your cut. That's less than 3% of that. That doesn't count any other dollar they spent anywhere else for anything. So when you add it all up, it's an enormous potential. But at some point in time, we got to bite the bullet and get off the planning and get on the moving. And I recommend we take a two-path method of doing this. One is promote what we got, and I think for the most part that's being done by the chamber, which is, hey, let's get those rooms filled up. Let's get those advertisements out there. Let's bring people here. And I understand it's working because there are reports that on certain weekend days you can't get down the road on 25 because it's so full trying to go down to the Pinnacles. But, you know, we're too proud to take any money off those people, so we just stand back and say, sure, go ahead. We don't put anything commercial down here. You just go ahead and bypass us. And on 101, we go faster through San Benito County. Don't stop and leave any money here because it might hurt our friends in Monterey or in Santa Clara. And the second thing we have to do on the other issue is stop planning on the other side and put more money into doing. In other words, bring the businesses in here. I can't imagine, I don't even have a concept of how much money it costs us to support one family where everybody's unemployed. And we have one of the highest unemployment rates in this area, and sometimes in California, depending on what season it is. And you know, we keep saying we're broke, and I know you're not lying. I know we're broke. The revenue's not there, but you know, this is an investment. This is not an expense. You got to put some money into it. If you don't put some money into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. And you know, quite frankly, I know it's not coming out of my pocket, but look at it on a comparative basis. I mean, we had a report here that we failed to collect over $400 and some thousand in permit fees. We made a mistake, okay, and now we're investing a big $35,000 for a year in economic development for the entire county. Doesn't make any sense to me. Let's pony up some bucks here and get this process moving. Thank you for your time.
And Aaron Johnston is the speaker part of the board.
Good afternoon, Board, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for the investment last year. As many of you guys have known, we've been quite busy with the SWOT analysis that some of you guys have attended, and then the CalLEAP cooperative event, which included the Chamber and the HDA. I believe you have that report in front of you. The work that we plan, that's that bigger packet, and if you don't have it, I know we can get you there because I know all of you were interviewed in that process. The work we hope to do this year, because we do know and recognize the funds are modest, is to develop a plan for implementation of those recommendations that came out of that CalLEAP report, and to give a recommendation for future funding on the implementation of your general plans, development strategy on the EDA on your and the county's comprehensive economic development strategy document and the strategy task force that has to babysit that process. We're going to give you recommendations on who to put on that, how to fund it, and how to get after some of that federal funding on that. cooperatively. So we're going to give you recommendations and funding ideas with that $5,000 investment for this next fiscal cycle, and we plan to make that presentation prior to this meeting next year, so you guys can think about what's the right number to invest for the economic development. The plan that we're going to create on the LEAP document has to be coordinated with all the other various agencies in the county. Frankly, we're too small of a county to have inefficiencies among different agencies doing the same thing. So our first actions, and I've already started this, is to meet with other associations like the HDA and others to coordinate our efforts, because we can't have duplication. We only can build this county's future if we all have clearly defined roles and who's going after what, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Supervisor Patel?
Yeah, kind of questions, comments, anyway, yeah, I don't disagree with what Mr. Richmond said, is that this is kind of a minimal amount of what we're looking at. And EDC, we funded $5,000 last year. I thought we got a mile's worth of return, with the coordination with the different reports that we've got. I read that report, and there's some really good recommendations that we all could kind of implement, and it won't cost us an arm and a leg, but the first steps are there, and then we could go forward. And we're in the staff recommendation, we're leaving a reserve of $5,000, and be quite honest with you, $5,000 is more of a pain in the neck to leave in reserve rather than to allocate it. And I kind of dropped the ball with one of our organizations. I should have brought this forward because I find that their work is very positive in San Juan for that small business community. They're trying to outreach to within regionally as well. And I have a letter which I shared with the board, and at the end of the letter, they participated in the LEAP assessment as well, and they have some ideas on how to incorporate some of the recommendations. And I kind of feel that maybe EDC might be the agency that could help that small organization implement some of the ideas, at least on the tourism side of it, and allocate the extra funds to incorporate that. And I hope the board maybe would consider that. And also, if the EDC, is that something that is part of your implementation thoughts, not only for just the San Juan committee, but also for the greater San Bernardino County, Hollister businesses?
Yeah, that's something we definitely like to entertain. Of course, we have to take that back to our board and the EDC board, and then meet with the San Juan committee to make sure that we're in alignment there. But assuming that we all are in agreement on direction, I think that we could help them make a plan to move forward on the LEAP, because that was kind of the consensus document that whole team got to.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Oh,
thank you,
Supervisor
Mr. Chair.
Byers.
I appreciate that you're trying to not duplicate the work that is being done, because we are so small that it's a waste of money, a waste of time. So I appreciate, are you getting cooperation from the others to move forward with that, so that?
We've had some tentative great conversations. We're going to have more conversations, frankly. We're at a very initial stage on that quest. The duplication of efforts, I think, is going to be the easy part of our journey. The sharing of resources, where we really have a common message and we're all agreement on whose role is what and how we can leverage each other, that's going to be the harder journey. I think that's one that's possible, but that's the one that we're going to work on this year.
And I appreciate what Supervisor Patello said. I know that we have a process, and San Juan Committee did not, become a part of the process. But if we could somehow funnel the money through, like Economic Development Corporation, it really would be a wise thing to do. And the reason I say that is because we all know that San Juan Bautista has a lot to offer, and they have been struggling for a long time, especially after the recession. When I read the efforts that are being made by that community through here, and just by talking to community, they are really stepping it up. When you have folks like this working really hard, just like the rest of you are, to try to bring that community back, to try to attract tourism, at the end of the day, San Benito County benefits. So, so I would support that if there's a way to do that and to funnel those efforts through you. So.
Like I said, I conditionally would be happy to do that. I still got to meet with the board. I'm sure they'll be excited to do that, and I would like to meet with the San Juan committee too, because we have to have alignment with them, right?
And we can make part of the that part of the criteria that it'll happen only if.
Right.
Yeah.
And when that.
And I don't expect there to be roadblocks along the way, but I just want to.
Yeah,
Let-
you
let
have
you-
to, of course. We
right,
can't just throw
right.
this in your lap and say, okay, we're going to do it, because there is no coordination yet, so.
That's right. That's right. But we're excited at the opportunity, I should say, because he doubled the funding within 5 minutes.
It's not all for you.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, might as well speak now, because I know once the wheels of government moves, you can't stop them. Is it fair to allocate the $5,000 reserves right now?
Probably not, but it's an idea that we can move forward with, provided that we get some sort of something, right, Chair? That, could we direct at this time that we would like to move that direction?
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, if I may, the $5,000, we allocated more funding for this year, and it's really your decision, your board's decision to make the call. Today, as the year goes through, I know we get really busy, and sometimes, it's difficult to allocate, and we may not utilize that money. But sometimes, San Juan Bautista is a good example. There was an item or a project that came through, and we had to do that mid-year. But it's up to the board. I think right now would probably be a good time to allocate it, just because the year gets by us pretty quick, and then they can start a project now, and have results, that we could see.
So if we're going to allocate today, then, so we're just going to give it to the Monterey. We're not going to let. I can see her already. Is going to fight for that $5,000
Well, I
too.
just have a comment to make that the EDC doesn't know that the chamber is already meeting with people in San Juan, and I don't know if Supervisor Botello knows that.
I know a lot of things.
Thanks. 2 weeks ago, I met with 8 people from San Juan Bautista, and we had over a 2-hour meeting to talk about what we could do in San Juan Bautista through tourism and working and partnering with them. And we have a lot of things in the works already. So you talk about duplication of efforts. That's going to be duplication of efforts. We're doing tourism. EDC is going to start doing tourism. So we're right back to everybody doing the same thing. We talked at that meeting. I had someone from the San Juan Committee there. I had actually 2 people from the San Juan Committee there. I had several members of the committee that have been there for many years. So we talked about a great deal of things, and we're going to start meeting quarterly, that group, and bringing other people into it. Each person from that group went back with a task to do to send me information. So this is already started. So then if you started again with EDC, if you don't want the chamber to continue with the tourism over there, that's fine, but it's something that we've already started in San Juan. So I don't want duplications of effort.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I do have the floor, well, I will feel comfortable if we're going to go in that direction and distribute the money today. Let's do a proportion. Let's give it to all 3 or all 4. Just give them a percentage, because it seems like they're all working with San Juan already. So, well,
You know, as I passed out, they had a little budget, itemized budget as far as what they want to do, and you know, the point I kind of wanted to try to make was that why leave the 5,000 in reserve? I think we're just better off allocating that out, whether it's to a chamber or to EDC, and just kind of move forward with that so we don't have it coming back. But these are some needs that was expressed to me, and the first thought that I had through the EDC was, you know, the response of this report, which I think we all received and read, and you know, they San Juan committee identified this report to implement some of the ideas like the website update, the signage, and maybe you know, the TV spot besides all these other things that they're working on. And if the chamber is better positioned to do that, and they're willing to make sure that that effort is allocated to San Juan, then that's fine. You know, I'm not, you know, this is $5,000, like Marty said. It's not a lot of money. And so, you know, let's kind of make a decision to move on. And as long as I have assurances that that's, you know, real resources are going into San Juan, I'm going to be fine with that. And I think Supervisor Barrios is right. You know, maybe next year, earlier in the process, they could stand alone at requesting funding. But for this year's process, we have great organizations that could help.
I just have a quick question, that's
forward.
all.
I do too,
Mr. Chair, just one quick question, that's all. Here's my only concern. You know, people are not going to believe me on this. I'll be honest. I just, you know, I'll be real nice about it. I just got this today. You want me to allocate $5,000
nice.
today. And yet we haven't even informed the public or other organizations that there's money available too. And where's the fairness, Mr. Chair? Where's the fairness in that?
Mr. Chair, well, you make a good point, and that's why
It's very valid point.
Very valid
So,
point, and that's why initially I said, you know, they did not go through the process, but if we can help them, knowing full well that San Juan Bautista is a viable community for tourism and bringing in, you know, economic
You got me on that one.
benefits. So I have a question for you, Julie, if you could come up, please. I didn't know the extent of the effort that the chamber was already working with San Juan. Is there cooperation there? Is there?
Yes, with the 8 people that were there, it was Bev Miember, who is on the San Juan Committee, and Jill Pagarin, I never know how to pronounce her name, who is on the San Juan Committee. Gail Slesnick was also there. Valerie Eglund was also there. And there were two other ladies that I just met that day that were brought in by the San Juan Committee. Sarah, she knows you. Anyway, so yes, and from that meeting, San Juan only had like 4 or 5 pages in the directory. From that meeting, it has grown to 8 pages, just from that meeting and the information that they are bringing back to me to include in that economic development / tourism, you know, directory that we're providing. So,
you already
we
have
are
you can already
right.
assess the
Yes.
benefit in joining with
Yes.
them with their efforts. So, because you have come forward and you have asked for more money
Right.
For what your efforts, if we can include some of these efforts that they're making, I would be
Well,
okay
and
to
we
support
did
it.
address some of those things that they're talking about. We're going to be doing a festival next year, and so we want to partner and do it at the same time they do their Ghost Walk. And then we also are going to have another event that we're going to have on Saturday. They're going to have something in San Juan Bautista on Sunday, and we're going to make packages with the hotels. Hopefully our hotel is finished by then. So it'll be a 2-day thing to keep tourists in San Benito County for 2 days. 1 day in, in Hollister at an event, and then another event on Sunday, and they can go back and forth, and they're both going to be family friendly. So those are things that we did discuss, and I'll be happy to give notes from that meeting to anybody that needs them, and, we can go forward. I don't know what the date of that letter was, but it might have been before our meeting.
Oh, like I said, I dropped the ball. The first part of the letter is in February, and the
Oh,
second
yeah, it
part
was
is
just,
in July 13th.
I can give you the exact date, but yeah, it was like two and a half weeks ago.
Yeah.
I do know that the stores I needed to go to were open, so it had to be a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday.
Right.
But I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday 2 weeks ago that we met at Hardeen's, so.
Okay, any other questions? Next speaker? No more speaker cards. Anyone else wishing to provide comments on this item?
Good evening, or afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Christina Chavez Wyatt, this time wearing a hat as a small business owner resident and a Workforce Development Board member. I have a big picture idea, and I'm hoping it gains some traction from you, either now or in the future. I'm hoping it would be now. In regard to the budget and economic development funding opportunities, it would be great for the county to maintain and grow momentum for foundational economic development work that will both be leveraged by private sector funding as well as opening a multitude of opportunities for grants from the Community Foundation, the Economic Development Administration, USDA, EPA, the Air Pollution Control District, AMBAG, et cetera, by funding $13,000 to start and restart your Economic Development Strategy Committee, and then hold on to your $5,000 allocation after the first committee meeting. The idea would be to support, diversify, and bring new life to Economic Development Committee, as your two Board of Supervisors are currently active on, as an Economic Development Strategy Committee, bring a diverse array of additional stakeholders to the table, as is conducted in Monterey and other regional counties. And one of the reasons why is it makes you eligible with a mandatory requirement for the EDA, USDA, and other organizations to do so. The composition could include 2 or more local government representatives, including 2 members of the Board of Supervisors and 1 representative each from the Hollister and San Juan Bautista, 2 from agriculture, 2 from education, including a lower elementary and high school, as well as upper division college or CSU, Gavilan College or CSUMB. Finance, and 1 each from finance, healthcare, labor, a micro or small business owner, a private sector major employer, 2 in research and development, 1 in tourism and hospitality, 1 from the Workforce Development Board, and 1 business association representative liaison each from the EDC, Business Council, HDA, and the San Juan Committee, and possibly even MBEP. And then bringing in staff from RMA, planning, the CAO management analysts, the America's Job Center from Health and Human Services, Housing Development Coordinator, and the Hollister Community Development Director. Ideally, this work would be supported in quarterly meetings and commissioned with the support of a consultant, possibly someone like Wes Urban, who led our Cal Leap with CalEd. The idea of the strategy committee would be to broadly represent the main economic interests of the region with representatives from official staff and business association representatives. And what we can also do in this committee would be to evaluate incentive options, as well as to review and discuss state and federal legislation issues that impact economic development, including comprehensive immigration reform, issues like Clear Creek, and reopening San Justo. The EDA, we brought a representative from the regional office in Central California and did a full-day orientation and meetings with representatives from the county, from the city, and San Juan Bautista. They're looking to fund opportunities to sustain and grow jobs in our community. In a full-day orientation that I coordinated on the 26th, the following project opportunities were discussed. A feasibility study for the establishment of a job incubator, which would also include Commute Alternative and Workforce Training Center. And examples of this include the ALBA programs in Salinas and the Cabrillo College Solari Green Technology Center in Watsonville. Another would be providing infrastructure support to the Hollister Airport region for food production, biotech, and manufacturing, including broadband, energy, streets, sidewalks, and water, and leveraging the business opportunities we're hoping to grow with the City of Hollister. I'm going with a delegation at the end of October to the National Business of Aviation Conference to attract some interest there. And all of the above programs would be implementation steps of the economic development element of your general plan, which falls also to include the development and implementation of the economic development strategy that the EDC is completing. It'd also be nice to have the remaining funds allocated as such. $2,000 to the Monterey Bay Business Council for procurement technical assistance. It is a good resource. I'm actually a government contractor myself, and I could see the value if we do more engagement with our community to take advantage of those opportunities. Definitely $5,000 to the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership. Wearing my hat of the Workforce Development Board, they actually gave a presentation to us in May. I attempted to make a motion to have the Workforce Development Board to recommend that the Board of Supervisors join the MBEP specifically for workforce development. And one of the reasons why is to bring in best practices for within the region for evaluation of workforce, and also to implement practices that improve the skills base of our workers. That way, right out of high school or out of their training programs, they're ready to go to work here in San Benito County. I do think it's important.
Hey, Christina, can you wrap up?
Absolutely. I do think it's important that we support the Chamber's request for funding, leveraging their existing $50,000 investment from the City of Hollister, and I believe it's $2,500 from the City of San Juan Bautista, with $5,000, but establishing an evaluation framework for tourism promotion programs, including tracking and reporting activity in the tourism centers, visitor centers, establishing bottom line impact on our TOT, our hotel occupancy rates, room rates, with the goal of increasing certain percentage and adding coupons and referral codes to any kind of place advertising to make sure that we are having some sort of accountability. And finally, I want you to know, in regard to your upcoming presentation by Gavilan College, I'm working with them to support a Santa Clara San Benito County event on September 21st for retail, hospitality, and tourism, and also including working with workforce development to collaborate with Gavilan on the implementation of the new Federal Workforce Development Investment Act. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Christina, if you could, your request, does it fall under, it sounded like you're working with the Economic Development Corporation. Is that your request for monies to, because we have to stay within the ones that actually asked for funding and distribute that $5,000 in some way, if we're going to do that? Who would you fall under?
Well, what I'm recommending is that the county commission their own with a request for proposal for $13,000 to develop, restart their economic development strategy committee with the composition that I recommended, with $5,000 to the EDC, $5,000 to the MBEP, $5,000 to the chamber, and then the $2,000 to the Monterey County Business Council.
So in addition to what we have here,
it would be a reshifting of the recommendation. And then holding on to the $5,000 possibly till after that first meeting to best assess possibly who would be the best organization to fund and support the San Juan Committee. I do hear conflicting information within the community as far as how effective the chamber has been in working with the San Juan Committee, and I'd like them to have that discussion with you in a formal setting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Thank you.
No? Anyone else wishing to address the board on this issue? Now's the time to do so. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to staff. And board members, questions, comments, recommendations?
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor De La Cruz.
yeah, Aaron? Hey, Aaron, which group you're from? EDC, right? EDC. I just want to know which group you're from.
EDC.
EDC, got it. All right, thank you, Aaron.
Sure.
Okay, is there,
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we go with staff recommendation.
staff recommendation? All right, is there a second?
What's, actually, Mr. Chair, what's the recommendation from staff? Ask
Right
this
before you, yeah.
I'll second that motion.
The 16-17 recommendation, right?
Pardon me?
The 16-17.
That's correct.
That's the recommended amount.
That's correct. What's on the screen right now?
Okay, is a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Oh, well.
Okay, so moving on, we'll move on to item 35. It's out of our Resource Management Agency. This is the Mr. Barnes show here on out.
Mr. Chair, real quick before Barnes interjects the board on this new item, I think we already have a committee, a low-income committee or a home committee or a committee that addresses
Thank you, Lou.
funding for affordable homes, low-income homes, and I'm part of that committee. So I know that in the item that you're about to discuss, you're asking that the board consider creating a committee, an advisory committee out of the planning commission.
Right.
Just for your information, that there's already a committee at the board level.
It's an ad hoc committee?
It's an ad hoc committee.
Okay. Thank you. I did not know that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, board members again.
Good afternoon, Brett.
This is a topic, actually, I'm delighted to be here today because this is so much easier than marijuana. This is a topic that's been before you and before the community and before the Planning Commission for a number of months, and I am delighted to bring to you today a draft ordinance for your consideration for recreation of an affordable housing requirement for development projects. As I'm sure I've told you in the past, the market right now is building, the average home in San Benito County is 4.2 bedrooms, 2.6 baths, and in north of $700,000, and that's not really affordable for a significant segment of the county's population. The ordinance that's before you comes out of a long conversation, as I said, with the Planning Commission, with the community, with affordable housing developers, with market rate developers, with advocates from of various stripes from around the community. It flows from and is based on the requirements of the policy guidance of the new general plan and the housing element that was recently adopted earlier this year. Excuse me. And it's also based on our experience from years ago with a similar affordable ordinance, but with a much lower level of participation. That ordinance required, if I recall correctly, 30% affordable units. This proposes 15%. And the 15% requirement is for projects that have 5 or greater number of dwellings, and that's on page 8 of the draft ordinance that's in front of you. I've distributed the draft ordinance again today because there are a couple of minor technical corrections that I want to read into the record, make sure that you are aware of. The important thing about this ordinance, I mean, two things. First of all, it creates a program, but most importantly, at least from my perspective, is that it creates a wide variety of ways in order to comply with the requirement for affordable units. There is on-site development of product, off-site development of product, in other words, participating with other developers in the community. And there's also the opportunity to pay in lieu fees. The amount of the in lieu fee is not before you today. It's simply the idea of creating an in lieu fee. We will be back to you with a nexus study that describes, establishes the recommendations for the amount of the in lieu fee, and I anticipate that will be around the end of the year or maybe in January. Don't know exactly when that will be yet. The ordinance also establishes the logistics for administration of the ordinance. You'll recall that we have agreed to participate with City of Hollister on a housing programs coordinator. This would be a primary portion of that person's duties. It establishes density bonus and an affordable by design provision. The density bonuses reflect state law primarily. It establishes development standards for affordable housing projects. They're a little bit different from standard zoning requirements so that we have some flexibility in yard sizes that will frankly help keep the land cost of development projects down. And as Supervisor De La Cruz noted, that establishes the Planning Commission as the Housing Advisory Committee to monitor progress and advise the board and staff on how to further implement the ordinance itself. The original proposal created a separate Housing Advisory Committee. That the Planning Commission was of the mind that we didn't need to create a separate housing committee and that the commission could function very well in that role, and we agree. There is, as I said, a couple of things, housekeeping things that I want to draw your attention to from the ordinance, and they are on page 14 in the section 21.03.011 Housing Advisory Committee. Basically a typographic error here. There is a section, subsection A, purpose, powers, and duties. Since there's no subsection B, we would propose to delete that subsection A and renumber subsections 1 and 2 as A and B. The Commission also asked and discussed at some length the ability in section number 12, the ability to use impact fees to backfill the reduction in lieu fees. So in other words, we're proposing that in lieu fees be absolved or reduced for 100% affordable projects. There's no point in burdening an affordable project by making them pay fees for additional affordable housing. It doesn't make any sense. So there would be, in essence or in theory, a shortfall in lieu fees or participation from that project. The Commission wanted to create the flexibility to use impact fees from other areas to backfill that shortfall. I offer that to you as an option here. It is not a part of the ordinance right now. It's not written into the ordinance. It's something that you may wish to put into the ordinance, or you may decide as a policy matter, as separate from the ordinance itself, to authorize that use. On page 16, this is a big one now, the top of the page in section 21.03.012, collection and use of in lieu fees, subsection G, impact fees, there was an S left off of the word impact fee in the second line, so it should read impact fees. I'm told by counsel that that was not critical, but I wanted to make that point.
It makes all the difference in the world to Supervisor Barrio, so.
I'm not going there.
Mr. Chair, I have a question in regards to.
Please.
Isn't that what we were just talking about, that you said we want to consider this later in the future, but isn't this it right here, where we would, if it's 100% affordable housing, we would prorate the reduction of?
This ordinance would establish the ability to prorate or reduce the fees. It does not establish the level of the fee. In other words, picking a number out of the sky, $1 a square foot, or differently, $100 a unit would be the in lieu fee that might be paid for to participate as an offsite. In other words, if you're not going to build affordable housing, you would pay $100 a unit, just to pick a number.
But no, I
into
understand that part,
so-
but the impact fees themselves for affordable housing, if it's 100%,
Right?
weren't you just talking about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood the question.
Right, and so wouldn't this address the reduction, not the in lieu, but the reduction or the?
Right. The commission wanted to make sure that their thought was explicit in your consideration, that the impact fees could be used to backfill the in lieu fees.
The in lieu fees,
Right.
okay. So that isn't clear in this statement, so we would have to address that or modify this to include that language.
Well, we talked at the commission meeting about whether to actually put that into the ordinance or not.
Okay,
The commission decided not to,
to do it.
but to leave the option for you to do it or to have you direct staff as a separate policy matter.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's a good question. Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Jerry?
Supervisor Dela Cruz can go first.
Paper, rock, scissors. Who go?
no, it's okay. I'll let you.
Okay. Brent, maybe this is not being addressed here, but the on-site unit.
Where
starts
am
on
I in
page
the
7.
ordinance? I'm sorry, where am I in the ordinance?
Starts on page 7, the on-site.
7.
It describes what an on-site affordable unit must be,
Right.
and continues on to page 8. Okay, and so 2 and 3, it says will be compatible in exterior appearance. 3 says will have a similar number of bedrooms as market rate homes. I guess what my question is, and I still refer to them as granny units, and I know we're not age restricted, but my thought is if we allow a smaller unit to be built on the site, of a particular house, that would be part of the affordable units and be inclusionary. Is that addressed in here? Or
That's an option, yes. The intent of this section, 21.03.006, is that if you're building affordable units as the primary use on the property, that they not look substantially different from the market rate units. In other words, they have a same fits and finishes
Okay.
kind of thing.
Okay, I understand that.
Right.
But somewhere in here, and I'm not seeing it, the secondary unit on the same site is addressed.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is in, on page 19, affordable by design. Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't specifically say granny unit or tiny house, or, there's a number of other kinds of configurations, but other configurations
Okay,
may
so
be
that would fall
proposed.
under other configurations. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Any
Mr.
other
Chair.
questions?
Yeah,
Supervisor
Mr.
Dela
Chair,
Cruz?
thank you. Oh, God, I don't even know the answer to this question. How many, besides the labor camp, actually I've seen Sunny on the audience, and the south side, or the river, the one on South Side Road, how many low-income housing projects are outside the city, but in the county? None, right? Maybe just Sunny's project? I mean, Riverview, that's the one I'm talking about, besides that one.
Yeah, we have 10 affordable units at Southside. Any others that were county?
Quail Hollow had, Oak Creek had a small number of affordable units. I don't know how many.
Affordable, define affordable for me.
I'm sorry, it was before my time. I don't know the answer specifically, but they are a little bit smaller units.
Because I do see a challenge for a lot of developers who want to build, low income and very, very low income out in the county.
Sure.
I see that as a challenge, and I think most of this is probably more targeted towards the city hall strip because that's where all the infrastructure's at and the public services are mostly cheaper per unit wise. Have you did you take that into consideration? Because it seems like you did, right? Because I'm looking at both tables, and there's more allowances given on the off-site versus the on-site, correct?
Well, we're trying to make it as flexible as possible, Supervisor. So that, two, we're trying to very closely partner with Hollister, the housing programs coordinator, and so on.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we recognize that higher density sorts of projects would probably be more well suited to the more urban areas. We would not put a 40 unit to the acre or 25 unit to the acre project in Tres Pinos, for example. It
Right.
just doesn't make
Okay.
any sense. But there are likely to be locations, for example, at the intersection of Fairview and Airline Highway, where there may be a piece of land up for grabs someday that could handle a higher density kind of project.
Okay. And then that's not a big issue for me because I know that, developers would develop where they can get the most bang out of the buck. I know that. And most likely they're probably going to want to go closer to the city. So that will take care of itself. The other issue that I'm kind of having a hard time accepting is the 11, item section 11.
Section 11.
It's the Housing Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Because I'm reading through it, and one of the reasons why this committee that I serve on, that's a ad hoc committee, is to pull all the funds together to best use it. For example, Chispa, Gabriel's out there. In fact, he was a recipient of one of the monies that we gave to his group, the one that's being built on West Side Boulevard. Buena Vista Road. Mm-hmm. And so we're taking that responsibility away from this ad hoc committee and giving it to the Planning Commission, which, you're talking about Jim's department that gives out money for these kind of low-income housing. So somehow the logistics has to be worked out in some way. And then I'm also reading over here on Section 11E, household eligibility. It says here that shall be granted to residents in San Benito County and those who are employed in San Benito County. And I know for a fact when you get home loan funds, when you get federal grants, when you get other state money, those are not allowed to give the top priority. I'm more of the opinion that we should help our local residents first. In fact, I was telling Supervisor Teller over lunch that I actually had a meeting with about 40-plus constituency on Sunday during football time, how their needs was how is it that I've been living here for 20, 30 years, and you have people who just come into our community 2 months, 6 months, 7 months, get top of the list. And I said, I'll share your concerns when we have this meeting. I was waiting for that to tell you that needs to be addressed. Somehow, I get a lot of my constituency just can't get into those programs, and they complain about how people from other communities come into our community and they get these homes. And I've actually talked to Gabriel and Sonny to share with me how their waiting list, and it's huge. There's a lot of people, and so we need more housing. And so I'm okay with the rest of the chapter. I think it's a good concept, a good direction. I just have some problems with creating a housing advisory committee out of the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission, their job is to advise on land use, and the ad hoc committee is more about how to best use those funds to work with groups like Chispa and Sonny's group.
So what do you propose? That we
I think
eliminate
we
it?
probably eliminate that or work or compromise something with the Planning Commission.
Okay. I'm not familiar with how the ad hoc committee was set up or what its charge is. I would point out that it's an ad hoc committee. It serves at the discretion, exists at the discretion of the board chair.
Mr.
That's
Chair,
fine. It works.
Let me ask one question. Can I ask someone from the public to come to the podium, because he also serves on the City Hall Planning Commission, and my understanding is, Gabriel, that you guys are going to adopt some kind of this type of resolution. Is that correct? And I want to know his opinion about this subcommittee. Why is it so important to keep it in here?
Do we keep the committee and adopt for new members or something?
Good afternoon. Gabriel Torres, VP of Operations for Chispa, Planning Commissioner for the City of Hollister as well. In regards to your question, Supervisor de la Cruz, yes, we have, the Planning Commission has discussed creating document, an ordinance or discussion of an inclusionary housing ordinance of some type to mirror what the county is preparing and will be before you soon. And so we are gradually getting traction with the council members with the city and presenting this ordinance to them via emails as well as some one-on-one meetings. We did try to set up a couple of joint committee meetings with the county planning commission. Fortunately, we had some hiccups there with noticing, but we do hope to reconvene those meetings here shortly and try to come up with an ordinance for the city that will mirror this. And again, to Supervisor De La Cruz's comment, the reason being because most of the properties that are being entertained for development within the county are within the sphere of influence of the city as well. And so the sewer service, water services are critical for those projects to move forward. So having both jurisdictions on the same page in regards to how we move forward with the affordable housing ordinances and the development of future affordable housing is critical. And so, yes, we will be having continued discussions, and I believe our chair, Dave Huboy, is coordinating with Ray Pierce to set up another meeting.
So, thank you. My follow-up question to you, which you have an answer, is it better to take that responsibility of pulling the money, working together with the ad hoc committee that's actually has worked in the past on how to address low-income, affordable homes, in conjunction with this new position that we're about to hire with the city Hollister on the housing guru?
Yeah, and just so for clarification purposes, the ad hoc committee that was created was created and asked by Mayor Ignacio Velasquez. He basically wanted to gather affordable housing stakeholders. So we have other members in the audience here. We have members from CSDC, Seth formerly from South County Housing, now working with Eden, Chispa, and others who are involved in affordable housing or even just in real estate as well, local real estate agents who have come to the table to discuss the issues and provide guidance to not only the county representatives who were at our meetings, but the city representatives as far as how difficult it actually is to develop affordable housing and some of the strings that are attached to the financing or lack of financing that is available to affordable housing developers at the state level these days. And so, yes, I do believe a committee with affordable housing stakeholders is critical to providing the committee, whatever the board ultimately decides to do. I believe, and I can hopefully speak for the others, but we as the affordable housing stakeholders would love to be involved in those conversations. I know in the development of this ordinance, our president CEO, Alfred Diaz-Infante, attended almost every meeting, provided input to get the ordinance to where he felt very comfortable with it, and with a few minor tweaks to come, I think the county will have a fairly good ordinance to work with. It would be something that I think the city can use as a fairly good template to follow. So, but
Mr.
yes.
Chair, in light of that information, I will submit to the board that we consider removing that item off this ordinance.
Okay.
Rather than removing it, why don't we just reword it? Because I think it's important for the Planning Commission. I mean, they put this together. We're maybe possibly approving it. There's a lot of, expertise that comes from these folks, but that we include the ad hoc committee that is already in place for the county. So instead of saying solely of members, just say comprised of members of the Planning Commission and the county ad hoc committee, and add that in there. So now we have more people involved. It becomes a little broader, and we can even include members of the community as well, which could include.
Yeah, if it boils down to membership, I think that I think maybe we leave it to staff to determine the appropriate members that need to be included.
Right.
But I can't make that call right now because I don't know. Maybe if you want to brainstorm with staff and is that Jaime, what do you think of that?
I just want to make sure that the Planning Commission doesn't have the full authority on how to dictate. I'd rather have a partnership. I'd rather work with Sonny's groups, Gabriel in South County Housing, any other group that we haven't heard of or has come to the table yet, have the ability to do brainstorming and think about ideas and bring recommendations back to the board how to best use those funds.
I think that if we can, as the point is well taken by Supervisor Barrios, is if we include in the language here the members that are to be, that are to, make up this advisory group. We could say 2 members from the affordable housing community.
Perfect, yeah.
Maybe 2 members from the planning commission, or wherever.
Perfect. I like that.
Let's leave it to staff to develop the language. But if we can include or have the membership be as diverse as possible, I think that would probably be appropriate.
And may I, if I still have the floor, Mr. Chair, I want to say that I really like the wording on this. When Supervisor Patello and I created and helped create affordable housing, we were calling it inclusionary housing, and it was by design only. This is by design and a percentage, and it's so flexible that maybe we will get our affordable housing because it does have that flexibility. So I really, really do like it. There is an error on page 7, where the percent on the very bottom, 15% is in there twice. So if you could just remove one of the percents, we're good to go.
I'm sorry, on page 7,
Way at the bottom, the last paragraph,
yes.
15%.
Oh,
Okay, so
we were being redundant.
one needs to be removed.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, just to conclude my position, you're going to bring, Mr. Chair, Brent, you're going to bring language back at the next reading so when we approve the ordinance, I'll have the new language in it?
Yes, I'll need to be guided by counsel. I'm instructed that I should read the title of the ordinance into the record and the changes proposed changes that we're making today.
Right.
And we're intending to continue this to September 27th for final consideration.
And the board should be aware that to the extent that the new committee is no longer an ad hoc committee, it becomes a standing committee or a Brown Act committee, so
Right.
would have to comply with the Brown Act.
So just to follow on that point, I think I heard 2 members of the board from the ad hoc committee. Was that your intent?
Yes, 2, yes.
Two
Mr. Chair.
planning commissioners, 2 members from the affordable housing community, and so that's 6, which is fine.
Which is
An even
fine.
number is
Any other recommendations on who should be part of the committee?
And just for clarification, Mr. Chair, this committee is going to bring a recommendation to this full board?
no. This is an advisory committee to the board on affordable housing matters, monitoring logistics, performance of the ordinance, and so on as we move forward to implement it. So it might meet again in 6 months to give you an update.
But yes, but they're not, I guess what I'm asking, they're not going to have power per se.
No.
Just
as-
advisory.
They're just advisory.
Advisory, right.
They'll come before us, whatever their advice is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Brent. Thank you.
Other questions?
Any other questions?
I think at this time we'll open up to the public comments.
She has a very low voice.
Hi, Seth Capron from Aromas. Thank you, Chairman Rivas and the board. I just want to really commend the Planning Commission and the board and staff for moving forward with this ordinance. Everybody knows what a crisis this is in our state and in Northern California, and how corrosive the long-term effects can be of housing not being affordable. I submitted some written comments, and most of them were incorporated into the ordinance, so thank you to staff and to the commission for doing that. I did have a couple of comments on the section on affordable by design. I still have a concern that this could have unintended consequence. I think I understand the idea behind it is if someone builds a project with smaller units and smaller lot sizes, that they can maybe bring all of the prices down and the whole project down and make it more affordable. I think the problem with this is there's no guarantee that that's what the result will be. And particularly a project could be approved and then built out, and 2 years later, we've seen this over the last several years. Prices could be considerably higher. So I think that there needs to be something in that section that somehow guarantees some affordability, because affordable by design is not affordable if it's not affordable. So I'm concerned that this language could result in a loophole that homes were built that ended up not contributing to affordable housing. And then I had another comment on the fees, the section Brent was talking about on page 16, where it says impact fees. I thought this was referring to general impact fees, but I think from the discussion, and maybe you could help me out on this, Brent, is this just referring to the inclusionary fee?
No, general impact.
General impact fees, okay. That's terrific then. That's a huge plus for affordable housing with a higher impact fees we've seen in the last 10 years. That's been a big burden for successfully developing affordable housing, so I really applaud you for including that in the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Seth.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the affordable by design has been a controversial or at least heavily discussed provision of the code. And if I recall, you brought that up at the Planning Commission. And I thought that the comments were well taken. It is an area that has been abused in the past, not necessarily here, but in other places. It becomes a loophole for folks to go in and build affordable units, sort of slip out of the program, and then a windfall for the residents to sell those units a few years later and make off with an immense profit. I did not, frankly, I forgot to deal with it at the last Planning Commission meeting, so it stayed in. It's a section you may wish to reconsider, or we can come back at a future time after a year or two of performance on this and have a look at the ordinance again.
Mr. Chairman,
President Patel?
yeah, thank you. I think we have deed restrictions at Riverview Estates, and does it make sense to solve this, that if a developer identifies these units as affordable by design, to put a deed restriction attached to that unit for, I don't know, what, 30 or 35 years, at least a generation, and that would solve the problem? Because I think there's units in Hollister that have restrictions as well, and next door you don't have it. It's been a controversy for the city of Hollister, no question about it. Somebody's got to watch the program.
Yeah.
But at least the mechanism is in place where somebody can. But if we don't have any protections going forward,
right,
then you have nothing.
The deed restriction would be the best, easiest way, because that puts the public, the rest of the world, on notice that this is an affordable unit.
And that's one of the
banks and,
I would
and
like
other
to
lenders.
think that the housing coordinator's duties would be to monitor some of this activity.
I would defer to council. I think that could be done under the provisions of the Affordable by Design section by reference to the rest of this ordinance. However, I think it would be better to explicitly say that in this section.
Yeah.
So we will bring that.
Say it in
right.
the
In fact, what we do is we actually draft the deed restriction and attach it as a exhibit to the ordinance or an exhibit to the when they construct when they apply, right, and get their thing. So we're making a lot of changes here. I'm not sure we're keeping track of them all, or
I don't think
so. What I would suggest is we keep going, but once you're done with the changes, we continue this item till the next meeting, and then let Brent bring back a red line copy with all the changes in it, because there's just so many of them, and some of them are substantive. So
yeah, and it's better to come back with the changes. It's been
I ran out of fingers
for a couple of years now, so another meeting or two won't make any difference.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, in regards to that, may I make a comment? I thought that it would be covered through an affordable housing or development agreement, so that they couldn't proceed and there would be no loopholes, because that agreement would be understood, designed, talked about, approved, whatever.
Yep.
And if we could add to that, development agreement recommended by the advisory committee, because that's where the advisory committee comes in, don't they, in regards to.
Certainly they can, yeah.
Maybe this kind of language, and approved by the Board of Supervisors, then this way, there will be no loopholes, because that development agreement will be approved before they can actually.
You know, the
forward.
only issue, Supervisor Barrios, I have with the development agreement is that some of the smaller developers, that say the 40-unit guy, doesn't want to do a development agreement. And
Well, then they'll have to address it by another means. Then by design will not be the way they can go. Because there's so many options that this is only one of them. If they say, no, I don't want to do it by design, then you say, okay, then you're going to have to, the 15% comes into play. There
Okay
are
there?
other options that they can choose.
Mr. Chair.
Where'd he go?
Mr. Chair, I was actually thinking how to debate the issue that Supervisor Barrios said, and I just thinking real hard. I actually pulled my lever. I actually went all the way down, and I guess that was my response. I sank on this. But thank you, Seth. Actually, this is very important what you just said, because if we leave this in here, I think it's a way to circumvent the entire ordinance. I would prefer, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but I would prefer you take that out. I just agree with Seth on this 100%, because I know for a fact there are a couple individuals that were actually already thinking about how to circumvent this already. And so I'm of the opinion, Mr. Chair, we got to take that out.
So I think it's great that we're debating the merits of this ordinance and whatnot, and we appreciate Seth's comments, but we still are on public comment.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and take the rest of the members from the public who wish to provide comments. So that way we could debate what they have to say as well. Let's take it all at once. Okay.
I think Martin.
Marty Richard from House. I think I have some comments cogent to some of these things. One is, the problem is not the developer when it comes to by design. The problem is the owner, the first owner, and so that's why you need a deed restriction. And there's work involved there. When the city had that, it had some slip through the crack, and so the owner sold it for a lot of money, took it out of the affordable range, and absconded. There's no other word with it. With the money when the housing market was high. So you got to do some work on that. But I think affordable by design, if it truly sells for the within the affordable range, and you have to make sure it does that the first time, and then it's deed restricted so that it just stays there. Okay, with some adjustment over time for CPI or whatever it is, but there's no windfall. So it stays there. Affordable by design is what you want. You want to get more housing for your bucks, and the only way to do that is to design it well and cut the yard size down or whatever. That's what we're looking for. Otherwise, nobody's going to be able to make it. So I think we ought to encourage people to get creative and do it by design and be able to. We'll have a restriction on exactly how much they got to sell it for. So I don't know how they can get around it, because they have codes to build to. They're going to have to meet the codes. There's design requirements to build to. They're going to have to meet that. But you will have to keep an eye on it. I assure you, it will not handle itself. So you got to throw a flag up to all the title companies and say, we're putting these in, and you guys better not let one go away when you transfer the title. You're going to be in a lot of trouble. We're going to come after you. Okay, you got to threaten them. The second item is, I'm nervous about this one about the impact fees, because I know when items are leveraged 2 times over, we lose track of what's going on. I think it's obvious to me that if you do affordable housing or inclusionary housing, whatever you call it, that they don't have to pay an inclusionary housing fee. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So it's obvious to me. But, the impact fees are basically the developers who pay the full impact fees expect that they'll be used to mitigate the impacts, and the the rest of our residents and citizens think the same thing. You heard them this morning talking about other things. They want their impacts mitigated. The first thing they always ask about every new development, is it mitigating the impacts? You start playing around with the impact fees, I think you're playing with dynamite, okay? I think you ought to just try and keep them as low as you can reasonably, but they need to go to mitigate the impacts of whatever it is. And you shouldn't move impact fees between developments. I think that's a problem. And you will find out one day we'll forget about it, and a year later we'll be looking at it and say, how did we get in that much trouble? That's my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Any other comments?
If you choose to leave that in the ordinance, I just think you need to put a lot more definition on it. The rest of the ordinance has some very objective amounts that developers are subject to creating a certain amount of affordable housing. The affordable by design doesn't say what affordable means. It doesn't say, and a developer who is producing homes and selling them outside any kind of restriction for cost, it's going to be difficult for them to get them down so they're affordable for low or very low income residents. They might be able to get them down so they're affordable for moderate income residents. And maybe you could, then they could be meeting their affordable design, their affordable requirements that way, and they wouldn't need affordable by design. To me, it gets down to the objective is affordable, and developers can meet that objective within the rest of the ordinance. I don't see what advantage that the only outcome I could see coming out of this would be developers building developments that weren't very affordable and being exempt from the rest of the ordinance. So it would be helpful for me if someone could paint a scenario where that actually created a scenario that had the outcomes we want, that needed that part of the ordinance to be there.
Mr. Chair, funny you say that, because I was actually going to express my concerns to the board on that nature set, because I'm looking at the definition what affordable says, and it doesn't give any detail what affordable means. It doesn't really mean low income or low income. It just means affordable. So by design, a developer can create an affordable concept by reaching the maximum point in which he can return his profit on it. So he says this is affordable, but yet he's actually 1 cent lower than what the market value is willing to bear. So I submit to the board, I just don't like that affordable by design. I think it's circumventing this ordinance. That's my position.
Well, could affordable by design be rental units like an apartment complex, duplexes, and things like that? I kind of like the flexibility. That was one of the things that Supervisor Barrios and I really emphasized on, trying to provide all the options that a developer could work with. For some developments, maybe affordable by design doesn't work.
Do you know how much rent is going for right now for 2-bedroom?
Yeah, I know what rent. I have
That's
people
not affordable.
every single day asking for a place to move to, every single day, and that's the problem. But you have the impact fees, you have the high cost of labor, and the lack of supply. It's supply and demand, and we don't have, despite what people kind of think in San Bernardino County, we haven't had a whole lot of building here, and certainly no rentals. And so, workforce housing, we were talking about that, earlier, and it's non-existent. So I like to leave some of this stuff in there, and if we need some protections, like affordable by design, that's what the smart developer comes in at. Well, we'd be smart too by having a deed restriction. It's simple.
Any comments, questions?
I just feel that I want to give that responsibility to groups like Sonny's group, Enriquez, South County Housing, Chispas. They're best at this game. We're not. We seek their advice on these kind of issues, and I prefer to hand the responsibility over to them than have a developer manipulate the ordinance, because This is about creating inclusionary housing. This is about creating low-income housing for our community residents. Because as of today, we continue to approve projects that allows those people who can afford a $600,000, $700,000 unit to come into our community. And I think we're not providing that supply to the low income of our community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, if we're ready to do that. I make a motion that we approve this, or that we bring this back with the changes, the recommended changes that were discussed with the red line, so that we can clearly see and to put a little more definition to by design so that the county is protected, maybe the deed restrictions, whatever that may be, and then bring it back to the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and then under the question, I I'm going to go with the motion at this point, but I as well, I think there's some fair questions I would raise about the affordable by design concepts, and the concerns that Jaime has expressed, I think, are important. And so I'll look to see for those red lines, in order for me to approve, in order for me to vote to approve this ordinance. But I do have some concerns about that as well.
Sure,
I like the flexibility aspect of it, but at the same time, I think that we certainly don't want to create an ordinance that's going to be, taken advantage of, by the development community.
I don't know if my question is I don't know who is to, county council maybe. Are we actually approving this ordinance with changes to come?
No.
Oh,
We're
okay.
just essentially
You're giving
continue the
guidance.
hearing until next time.
Okay, because that's where I was going to go. I wanted it just continued until we could see a
be
clean
continued.
version.
So in essence, we're continuing the hearing to bring back a red line version with the changes in it.
Excuse me.
Unless you want to talk about it for another
No.
45 minutes.
Brent's going to wish he was.
I'm out of fingers. I'm onto my toes, and I can't do anymore.
So we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very
To be
much.
continued.
Good. No, that's great.
Oh. Uh-oh.
All right, we got to fast track this? All right, so we're moving on to item 36, Resource Management Agency. Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Goldstone will present number 36 and 37.
All right. Thank you, Brent.
You bet.
Hi there, good afternoon.
Hey, Jerry, you were right. Jerry?
Okay, so we're here to talk about the Southside Hospital property RFP process that was recently performed. As you're all very aware, we've been attempting to, surplus and liquidate this property for some time. We went out for another RFP in July. Proposals were due in early August, and 3 proposals were received. And then in mid-August, we had a facilities committee meet to try to rank the 3 proposals. And we quickly discovered that there were pros and cons about each one, and it was very difficult to come to a consensus, and the decision was made to bring it to the full board and have some of the developers present in case there were some specific questions related to those pros and cons to help kind of guide the decision. Now, let me be clear right here that no environmental review from a CEQA standpoint has been prepared on any of these proposals, and we're not asking for any of that determination today. There are still some legal issues we would need to look at about the, transaction of the property. What we're asking for today is a ranking 1, 2, and 3 of the proposals and the appointment of a negotiator so that we can work with that top selected proposal and work with them on those issues and bring back something for a formal consideration to the board at another time. If we're unable to come to some sort of deal or arrangement with that first developer, then we work to the second one. This at least provides staff direction on where we're going, and it gives the proposers some clarity on where they are in the process and make those plans relative to their project. We are obviously very eager to do something with the property. their proposals also have timelines and funding things too. So the sooner we can let them know what we're thinking, the better it is for everyone. So just kind of covering it here again, what we would do is, or what we did, item number one, the Facilities Committee reviewed the proposals, and today we're at number two to have you provide a ranking. Staff would then begin coordination with the selected developer, bring it back to the board to approve final terms. You would approve the property transfer, and then the project would begin. In the RFP, 4 different criteria were identified to be used for selection. They're here in a rough order. We do have some flexibility on this, but this was kind of to guide the developers into seeing what it is we're looking for. So the first one was overall public benefit to the county. What public benefit of the project, would it include, or the creation of a desirable public service or amenity? So it was kind of open whether that was something, whether we wanted a hotel seemed to be a good public benefit, or a park, or affordable housing, or whatever the case was. Number 2 was the experience of the developer to complete a project. Obviously, we want to enter into something with somebody that's going to have the ability to start it and finish it. So what sort of evidence does that developer have? Number 3 was the overall economic benefit to the county. Whether it be property taxes, sales taxes, job creation, purchase price, whatever it is. Again, whatever the board felt was, the biggest economic benefit. And then finally, the capacity developer to complete the project, similar to criteria number 2, but this kind of goes more into, financing and those kind of things to really get it done. So, and these are just in alphabetical order. Again, there's no ranking here. So by developer name. I don't see this developer here in the audience. They indicated that they may have trouble coming at this time. Developer name is Alpha Links. I believe this is the company that proposed the first time and wasn't able to come to an agreement with the board several years ago. They've included a slightly different proposal now. They intend to renovate the property into an assisted living project, and they anticipate the cleanup portion to take about a year from when the transaction occurs. They didn't have any actual drawings. They had some photos of what a typical project that they would propose would look like, and those are included there. Pros and cons as staff sees it, and the committee provides a needed community service, right? We don't really have much assisted living here. And they intend to offer $250,000 for a purchase price. The con on this one is that they obviously have not performed any project like this before, so there's really no track record on their ability to complete this. Proposal number 2 is from Chispa. They propose to construct 68 affordable apartments. The cleanup would be the county's responsibility. And here's a drawing that they have. It's you can kind of see here, if you can see on my cursor here, this is following the parcel. So in order to make the project pencil, there is some additional land that they are requesting, and we'll talk about that. So the pro here is that this provides a needed supply of affordable housing, as we just heard in the last item, and based on the committee's opinion, the developer has a good track record of performance. The cons are the developer would not clean up the site. Their proposal includes us performing that. And then the project does require potentially significant request of additional land. That extra piece over there, now whether or not that can occur somewhere else, as it's shown here, is obviously detrimental to our continued use of the site for Public Works, Ag Commissioner, and those other uses.
Adam,
Yes.
I was looking last night and I didn't see it. Was the actual RFP in our package? I didn't see it.
I can't recall.
Okay, so let me ask my question then,
Sure.
because I didn't see it.
No, it wasn't.
It was not. Okay.
It wasn't attached to the.
So was the RFP to include the cleanup of the site?
It was, there was a time frame stipulated, that the cleanup would need to occur based on our previous item on this, that there was concern by the board that it doesn't languish, even if we were to proceed with a project, that the cleanup would occur.
But was the applicant, the responsibility of the applicant to clean up the site?
That is the way that it was worded.
The RFP was written. So this proposal is not meeting that requirement.
That one, that's correct.
Okay. And then did the RFP spell out the site specific? So this proposal is going beyond the site specific of the RFP.
And we did put some wording in the RFP that we would consider possibly enlarging the site, because we do have some.
So that
we
was
do have
in the
some
RFP.
land. Yes.
Okay.
You have
Again,
some land to
not
give.
having seen the RFP, I didn't know.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And then the final proposal is from CSDC, who proposes to construct 21 affordable single-family homes similar to the Riverview Estates nearby and clean up the site within 1 year. This has turned a little bit to get it there, but they also go outside the pre-designated parcel area, but not quite to the same degree. And so the pros here, again, provides needed supply of affordable housing. We have the property taxes from the individual houses. The con is that it does require some initial land. So that's pretty much just a quick overview. If there's any other specific questions, that's what I'm here for, and the developers are here for.
Are there any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, I got a good question. So this group right here, they don't require any financial from us. It's all additional land.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes. Okay. CSDC, yes.
And Chispa does require funding from our
Well, they're hoping to get a clean site.
Okay.
And not have to perform the remediation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
They did allude to some government grants that are available. We have checked into that. It's not a sufficient amount of money for us to complete it solely with the grant money to complete the cleanup.
Do maybe the developers want to come up and give some comments?
I'm not sure if they were prepared for that, but they're certainly welcome. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, maybe if from the facilities committee, maybe we could make a couple of comments before they do.
Actually, yeah. I'm sorry, I meant to say that.
Supervisor Barrios and I have looked at this a few times over and worked with staff on these proposals, and I think the county is very fortunate to have three distinctive different proposals, good proposals, all three of them, and it is, from my perspective, a very difficult, choice, and happy to have the interest in this location for good projects, and it's a challenging site with the hospital there. One of for the what is it, elderly care facility, I think, personally, one member of the committee, and I think Supervisor Barrios will add to her thoughts to mine. We might be doing those folks a favor by, ranking them a little bit lower than the other two applicants. It's take a lot of investment, a lot of money to clean up that site, and sometimes when you get on a parcel like that, you kind of find yourself overextended sooner than later. I hope that they continue their quest to develop long-term facilities somewhere in our county. I think they would be very successful. It's a high need for our community. With Chispa, they've done fantastic projects. They're in the midst of a very good project on Buena Vista, and that I think is be a diamond for our community. I do have concerns about us cleaning up the site, because if we've been able to clean up the site I think we would have done it a couple of years ago, if not longer. And so that's a concern. And with CD, and the other thing that concerns me out Chispa, and which affects the facilities committee's concerns, is, you know, it does infringe into the agricultural offices, and maybe our ag commissioner is here urging that we pick Chispa. Yeah, that's right. She'll be there with the wrecking ball herself. But in all seriousness, we don't have a very good idea where to move that office in the near-term future, and so that kind of works against us on that proposal. You know, which I think I've been very adamant in support of getting rid of the old hospital site as soon as possible, and the CSDC has at least a timeline to do it on their dime, and it seems like they have some funding in line for that, and I'm sure in their presentation they'll outline that. I don't know if Supervisor Barrios has some thoughts too.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ranked them myself, you know, and came up with the top two being CSDC and Chispa, but I have to be fair to the private developer, and why I didn't pick them as the top ranking, because they had no specific funding sources. They named a few, but they were a little vague, and it's not something that I want to risk for the end result. And the timeline to me was unrealistic in the renovation. They expect to actually keep the building, renovate it, and house, you know, elderly, and I just didn't think that was a realistic timeline nor a realistic endeavor. And so I pretty much ruled them out. The other two, I have to say that I ranked Chispa higher. And the reason I did is because I'm looking at the end result. The end result, knowing how much need we have for affordable housing, the fact that there would be 3 times as many units, even though, yes, there is a little more land taken, perhaps it can be scaled down a few units, maybe reconfigured so that there is no additional land taken. But I really wanted to provide more housing, more available housing for our community. So that was the end result that I was looking at. CSDC had a very viable project, but these are homes that are going to be sold. They're not homes that are going to be available necessarily for rental. There are a lot of people out there that cannot afford to buy a home. They are able to rent but not able to buy. So that is a reason why I.
So your ranking is Chispa, CSDC, and then the third.
And then the third, yeah. So Chispa would be at the top for me for the reasons stated. Number 2, CSDC, and then I have pretty much ruled out number 3, or the last one.
Yeah, and you know that we didn't. This is another hard committee that I had to work with Supervisor Barrios and Supervisor De La Cruz. But I agree with Supervisor Barrios to the extent that we need more rental units, and I kind of wish it didn't overlay into our ag department. And I don't know if there was any possibility of changes. But the other thing that put me off on Chispa was that they want a clean site, and then you know that's a tall order for us, and you know, and so I ranked mine with CSDC because they're clean up the site. It is market rate homes, which is they've had some very good projects throughout Hollister as well that shows that it you know, it's very nice looking homes that will be a kind of another phase, as we saw in our packet, to Riverview Estates, and we just need to try to work with our other developers to try to get some more rental units and programs with Hollister, but for that small of a site. And the development that is a go on in that Enterprise Road and Southside Road area, we're talking about a great deal of density, and I have concerns about that level of density in that area. and adding on to that. So I like the continuation of Riverview Estates. So there's a lot of pros to both CHISPA and CSDC, but at the end of the day, CSDC won the top spot for me.
So I think what we'll do, so I know we're going to have the presentation from the developers, right? I think we have enough for members of our committee. So let's have the developers give the presentation, and then we'll open up to public comment.
Sure.
Good afternoon. I'm Sonny Flores with CSDC, Community Services Development Corporation. And I want to thank the board and staff for considering our proposal. So in 2002, CSDC worked with the county and South County Housing to develop Riverview Estates. That's 56 homes, which were 28 moderate rate and 28 self-help homes for home ownership. We want to continue that with 21 self-help homes. So these won't be market rate. They'll be sold with deed restrictions to the low and very low income residents in the county. By offering those 21 homes, that might free up rental housing. So these are folks that would be qualified for low and very low income rental housing. So that might provide some additional units there. Let's see, so that's our goal. So currently we're working with USDA, RCAC, and staff from South County Housing to assume South County Housing's 523 Self-Help Technical Assistance Grant, which will allow us to assist the owner builders of those homes to develop them. We would be responsible for the development of the land. If we are accepted, we'll take responsibility for the site cleanup. We've looked into some EPA funding, whether it would be grants, loans, and also consider privately funding it through our own reserves. Let's see what we have here. By doing so, again, we talked about the lot line adjustment, so we'd look into accepting a little more space if it was available to build additional homes there. Let's see, we believe we can have the demolition and remediation of the lead and asbestos done within 12 months, and over the next 18 months, we'd get all our civil engineering done and possibly have all the improvements in place to develop the land so the builders can come in and build their homes within 24 months. By doing that, the benefits to the county would be tax revenue. It would be taking a tax-exempt property and making it taxable. You'd get taxable income year after year. And then again, these are affordable units at low and very low income rates. And I got Seth Capron here with me. He's going to be part of our development team. He's formerly with South County Housing. He's built over 350 self-help homes in San Benito County. And so I'll let him come up and talk more about the benefits of self-help homes. Thanks, Sen.
Is it possible to bring those slides up now? No. No? No?
No, we're not doing formal.
Oh, okay. There are a few things I want to talk to you guys about, but I think the main thing I want to get across is we're working with the state USDA office to transfer South County Housing's last USDA grant, which remains. It's an $820,000 grant for technical assistance to CSDC. And this is an opportunity for the county. It's an opportunity for CSDC. As Sonny mentioned, South County Housing has developed over 500 self-help homes. About 350 of those have been here in San Benito County, benefited a huge number of families here, continue to be, most of them, deed-restricted homes that have low and very low-income families living in them. And it's important for that transfer grant process to get a project going as soon as possible. So besides this project in and of itself, which I think is a good project, this is an opportunity to help to make sure that the self-help program continues in the county. From my way of thinking, it would be a big loss to the county. It's made a huge difference in a lot of families' lives over the years, and I'm disappointed I couldn't get slides up because I brought some photographs of, I know a couple of you at least have been out to the most recent homes that South County Housing built on the northwest side of Hollister, but they're really beautiful houses. People, I mean, if you look at the Riverview homes or the adjacent homes to the more recent ones, the Bridgeville homes, those are nice looking houses. They've been well maintained. The ones we built more recently are just incredible, gorgeous houses. They're incredibly energy efficient. They all have solar panels on the roofs. Most of them are passive solar. And the experience of building a self-help home is transformative for the families. These are families who would be eligible to rent a low-income apartment, so it's not creating an opportunity for homeowners that is not available to a low-income renter. These are people who would be renters otherwise, most of them. Creates an opportunity for them to get into home ownership, and that has such a big effect on their lives, the lives of their kids, to not just have clean, decent, affordable housing, but to have a stake in the community. You know, we've seen a couple of former self-help builders or self-help kids who grew up in self-help houses go on to become leaders of our community here, mayors of the community, you know, on the city council. I think that speaks a lot about how this affects the people who are involved in the process. In terms of some of the specific issues with this piece of property, the extra land that we were looking at including is doesn't have buildings on it, and it's a grassy area. And we talked to Brent, and he said that they were thinking that might be an appropriate area, so it wouldn't be impacting the county's operations. I've had a lot of experience myself in remediating toxic sites and working with local and state environmental people and all the regulations around that, and I would be contributing that to the development of this project. In terms of the financial capacity, CSDC is in strong financial position, has some of their own cash reserves that they could contribute to pushing this project forward. And there's a regional group called RCAC, well, anyway, I'm blanking on the acronym, what it stands for, but they have a grant from USDA to provide technical assistance to groups like South County Housing and CSDC, and they're very interested in helping out with this project, and they have a loan fund, and they've expressed a willingness and an interest in loaning money for the construction of this project. So there's a lot of opportunities for funding. And in terms of weighing the different projects, to my way of thinking, this location is not really an appropriate location for doing a large multifamily project. I mean, even though this area is going to get built out over the next several years, with residential development, it's a little bit too far from commercial development and from the resources that the families that lived in a multi-family development there might need. I think it's much more appropriate for single-family development. So I hope we can work something out with the county on this. My biggest interest in it, it's a very challenging site. It's not an ideal site. Sonny and I spent a lot of time looking at it, and we can make it work. But our biggest interest is getting going, getting a piece of land, getting a project going, so we can make sure that we keep this resource in the county. The technical assistance money will make a big difference over time. There will be, as Sonny mentioned, there'll be taxes paid, whereas a multifamily project would be exempt from property taxes. And typically, I think the last project that we did in Hollister was 30-unit self-help project. It brought about $3 million into the local community in terms of materials that we bought and subcontractors that we hired.
Thank you, sir.
So, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Gabriel Torres, VP of Operations for Chispa. So for our proposal, I wanted to start off with a few points. The biggest, and I don't know if we can go to the slide with the pros and cons. Let me see here. Yeah. No, that's not the way. There we go. Okay, so just a little bit of background for the supervisors. We started looking at this site back when the board was entertaining this for the homeless shelter. And as our subsidiary company, Central Coast Residential Builders, we were invited to a number of the meetings, discussions to discuss how we could partner with the county in developing this as a homeless facility. We were able to review a lot of the early environmental documents that were provided to us, as well as provided to the county, as well as recent documents that were provided to the county. And given the levels of the toxics on the site, we worked with the county, with Jose Vasquez and Jim, to find other sources of funding where we could actually get more detailed reports prepared. NALCAB was one of the groups that we assisted the county in collaborating with, and they provided some grant monies, and they're currently working with the county on other funding sources. But the updated reports that we received, we as a development company, we as an organization felt that the results of those studies, the risks on the site were very extreme. And even for the county as a whole currently, we're a detriment to the county. I mean, if you visited the site lately, and everybody else here as well, you have transients, you have vandals, you're going through this, they're contaminating the site, they're taking those contaminations home with them when they're in there spraying and demolishing and kicking in walls. So there are a number of hazards, and if you look at the report itself shows some very high levels of toxics in that building. And there is, Adam and the county can go over there and try to gate the facility as much as they can, but they're going to get in no matter what. So our proposal included working with the county again for EPA grants. I've been working with Jose Vasquez and a number of local demolishing companies and abatement companies to try to dial that in. And we felt that given the EPA conference that Jose Vasquez and I attended up in Oakland here a while back, that we'll go after a number of different sources, EPA funding, that we, CHISPA, would assist the county in securing those fundings. We talked with those folks at EPA. We identified 3 different grant opportunities where we can apply for not only the pre-development work, but also the demolition and abatement as well. We have 2 qualified local contractors who could do the abatement as well in a timely manner. But our goal was to secure that pre-development monies with the EPA, so that opens up the opportunity for larger grant amounts, not only for the hospital sites, but any other sites within the county as well. So I just wanted to make that point real quick. The requiring additional land, we felt that land would maximize 68 units we felt was adequate. Again, we wanted to provide affordable housing for not only the local community members and income levels varying from 50 to 80% of area median income, but we had also in conversations with Jim talking about funding that the county is going after for homeless folks who are actually employed but are homeless and do have an income, targeting those folks. So the multifamily was going to we were going to partner with Jim to identify those families that are currently identified as homeless but still have an income, could qualify to rent, and utilize that group to fill the vacancies within this development. So that was why we kind of leaned toward the multifamily development. The other is we had to have a number of conversations with the Housing Authority via Jim's recommendation. So with Mrs. Panetta, we met with her. She's the Executive Director for the Housing Authority, and looking at potentially doing this as a Section 8 voucher job, so that we can actually encourage a lot of those folks who are on the waiting list for Section 8 to get a multifamily unit. Again, so looking at sources within the county proper, as well as the Housing Authority, filling that void of folks who are in line or in the queue or in waiting lists for apartment complexes. So we felt this would be the most appropriate use, and so I wanted to make sure to address those 2 cons. The development, again, we have been working with the county as well as the city, knowing well that we would actually have to work with the city for services, water and sewer services. I think here recently the group came before you in regards to the development of Union Road and the future expansion of that area. Given the amount of single-family homes and the small dedication that the group has set aside for a school site, we felt that the multifamily would actually blend in very well with that existing sea of additional single-family homes. Again, so our goal with providing this response to the RFP was to try to accommodate the county's various programs that are currently in place, as well as funding that the county is securing or is in the process of applying for, to allow more opportunities not only for this development but other developments within the county as well. And again, this is just one example of that. So I can answer any questions that you have in regards to the proposal itself.
Any questions from members of the board? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, I'll open up for public comment. Okay.
Thank you for the offer.
Okay. Okay. With that, I'll bring it back to the board. So, Adam, what do you need from us? You need us to rank them?
Yeah, I'm again, we were hoping there'd be a more, clear-cut winner, but as you can see and hear from them, that there's definitely merits to both.
Split on its own.
I have a question. Mr. Chair, Adam, did Sonny's group, do they have a time frame they're going to do it?
You had said
Because
12 months for cleanup?
12 months for cleanup?
We expect we can do cleanup within 12 months of acquisition, and I believe the total project was about 36 months.
36 months?
I want to make sure they don't hold on to it and speculate it. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure they don't hold on to it, speculate it, wait to.
And that's certainly something that we could cover in the eventual transaction is.
So
they would
I
have
think
to-
the way we'll handle it is if there's a member of the board that wishes to provide a recommendation on a preferred, I guess you can say, what is it, a preferred ranking, then we can just take the motion.
I just have one more comment to make. I really appreciate Seth and I know the work that they have done in the past, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful. But I think where I'm going is that it would take about $500,000 to clean that up, is my guess. That's the quote that we have gotten before. I don't think the county will have to pay for it. I think, and maybe Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are enough resources out there that we could get enough funding to clean it up. If it were to cost the county $500,000 to clean it, there's no way we could build additional housing, 40 more units for that amount of money. If you see where I'm going with that. I mean, it may be costing us that, but we couldn't build 40 more units for that. And Chispa can. So that's why I'm thinking the way I am and trying to get more housing. So
Yeah, no, I
Jim?
appreciate all the staff and the proposals and our committee. I myself am leaning towards CSDC, right? Is that is that the right acronym? Yeah.
These guys.
But I do appreciate, obviously, the work Chispa has done. I just believe that CSDC will help address a need, and obviously the cleanup aspect of that property as well is a tipping point for me.
Mr. Chair, before Jim, I really I like the idea what CD offered them, but at the time we need more apartments, and that's what the Chispa offers. But unfortunately, two big issues that kind of deter me from going that direction is one, you're asking us, Gabriel, to put money in, and that was not the intent. The intent was to find an alternative solution that can address that and take us off our hand, and that's not happening. That's my opinion. And two, you're asking for more space, and that was again not the intention that we saw this. So, I prefer yours in reality, but Sonny and their group actually meets the criteria that we're looking for, and so I think I'm going to have to support Sonny's idea.
Oh, so I just wanted to clarify on the cleanup funds. There is some EPA funds that we can apply for, I think, in September. They're maxed out at $200,000. I've talked with our grant writer, Hosea, on this issue. If we're successful in getting that, then there's funding beyond that we can continue to go after. So we think that we could come up with the cleanup funds, but that's not in the bank right now. You need to understand that. That's things that we would have to apply for and get. We think we have a good record on doing those kinds of things, and we feel very confident that we could make that happen. But that will happen over a period of time.
Then, oh, sorry.
Supervisor Munzer?
Okay, so my comments are, and I'm probably in the same boat as Supervisor Botello, being remiss in not letting my constituents know about this in a timely manner. But I think, one, it's going to be an easier sell to the neighbors down below in Riverside Estates with another project of self-help housing being built on top of them, as opposed to apartment complexes being built on top of them. And the other thing that I'm very concerned about, and I'm sure it would have to be mitigated in the whole process, but that amount of traffic coming out on Southside Road, anywhere near that curve, you know, you have the migrant camp coming off the hill from the opposite direction. You have the curve that is the old entrance to the hospital, and you have two entrances that the county is utilizing, plus all the additional traffic that's just going to come along on Southside. So, again, I don't know, 68 units, however many units the apartment was, that traffic concerns me. I'm a true believer in self-help built houses. I did see their project on the west side of town. It was a great project, and I just think that's an ideal project for that site. It won't overburden the road, won't overburden the infrastructure. It will get rid of the building that I get calls on all the time now, and I'm fearful if the county is tasked with getting rid of that building. We don't have a good reputation of and good track record of getting things done in a timely manner. I'm sorry. So I would definitely go with CSDC as my top ranked proposal, followed by CHISPA, and then the private party last. And again, simply because I think, as Supervisor Berrio said, they do not have the track record. But so.
That's Supervisor Botello.
Yeah, I'm sorry to the Ag Commissioner, but I haven't been able to figure out a better idea where you can move to, even though nothing would please. I'd be out there with the wrecking ball too, helping you tear it down. But, you know, sure, we hypothetically, if we were able to find the funds for CHISPA to clean up that site, then we got to find a site for the Ag Commissioner. Now we're into it for $1.5 million. But I think we'll have other projects. We're going to have other projects. Don't worry.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll, this isn't the right fit, but we'll get one that is a right fit, and more than one. I'm sure of it. So I'm optimistic that, you know, with the new housing ordinance that we'll have in place very soon, and our partnership with Hollister, things are better now than they've been in a long time. So CHISPA, you will have some more projects.
Okay. So I think we heard from everyone, including the public. So,
I think that's enough. It's
Okay.
not a formal action.
So
CSDC, I will work with them on resolving some of those issues and bring back a report as soon as we can.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Mr. Vice Chair, so under staff recommendation, appointing a county negotiator,
right.
I think it would be recommended to probably appoint the CAO, and then I can delegate that to staff if need be. I think just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Okay. All right. So we don't need a motion to direct us, CEO to negotiate with CSDC.
Probably have a motion to appoint.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We should probably have a motion to appoint the CAO as the county negotiator, and then you can direct him to negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second to have the CAO begin the negotiations with CSDC as our first option. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to say no only because I had chosen CHISPA and you included, if you had just said then I would have voted yes. But I just want to say that I trust that CSDC will do a good job. I'm not against that. I just stronger on the other.
So, all right. So, motion carries 4-1.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Go.
So, moving on to our last item of the day, 37. Again, it's Resource Management Agency. Almost done.
Do we have to go close session?
Was this one yours?
Excuse me.
Was that one yours? Yes. Okay, sorry, I thought it was something else. Okay, so in trying to tie everything together here for you, as mentioned, the Ag Commissioner is one of the departments in need of some new digs. So in that light, we've been looking at their department and many others and trying to look for the future, and just wanted to highlight some concerns and some ideas that we have here. So here's a satellite image of the area and highlighting our main facilities that we really need to look at. Some are going to need a deeper look than others. But this just kind of gives you a graphic representation. We're a little spread out there. But the primary focus we really want to look at is of course where we are right now, is the downtown block. South side it would be right behind it in importance, but more easily achievable, so it would actually probably happen first. This area is going to require a much more study and a much bigger plan. So let me back up for a second. So what we propose, and I'm sorry that this wasn't in the CIP budget a few months ago. With me coming back on board, I wasn't able to, codify everything into there. So this is something that staff and the CAO's office have been talking about. So we really need to have a facilities master plan that tells us, what do we need and what's it going to look like and how are we going to get there, right? I'm going to go over a few of the issues the questions that we have that a master plan would help answer for us. So first off would be a needs assessment. We need to know what are the current and future staffing levels for all departments. And I propose us looking at the county as a whole and then, of course, focusing here on this block. Are there any required features or infrastructure that we currently lack that we need going into the future? Everything from, a specific piece of equipment to more of a large-scale service. Can we benefit from efficient adjacencies? Can certain departments be closer together and save on staff or operating costs? And do we have any partners that we can identify, like the city or other organizations, nonprofits or whatever, that could help co-locate with our facilities? What size building does that equate to? What is the ideal massing? Do we want campus type approach? Do we want a single large building? We know that there's some issues here on this property. We have a partially sinking building. We know there's a fault trace through here as well. So we would need to see what those soils issues really are. What is our buildable area on this land? And would it require any expensive foundations or soil prep? So we really need to analyze what it is we have here and how much of it is usable and what would it cost to deal with it. Utilities, is there sufficient existing infrastructure coming in? Can the existing lines that are running through all these alleys here, can they be relocated or removed? Is there an opportunity for alternative power? When we previously looked at solar panels, one of the issues was we didn't have a high enough concentration anywhere, enough large rooftop area. By making, by planning for that, we may be able to make it pencil a lot better. Obviously, parking. What would the parking requirement be for this type of facility? What is the existing parking capacity, and what would be the options to increase supply? Phasing, what are the options for relocating staff while construction would be happening? How do we minimize service interruptions to the public? And then, of course, the biggest question, what is the estimated cost? What options for funding are available? And what sort of time frame are we looking at to do that? So the staff's recommendation is to conduct an RFQ process to identify potential consultants, have the facilities committee or another committee review and interview those firms, and then bring back a negotiated scope and fee for the board's consideration. Now, in the short term, this is likely to be something that goes on the shelf, right, while we build up the funding. But it's something we will consult as issues come up, as buildings need repair. We'll have this master plan that kind of tells us how long we expect to still be in there, and we can make those decisions about how much to invest in what we have without wasting money. So it would be an important planning document for all of us. So we need to know where we're going, and more importantly, how to get there. Is kind of the culmination there.
I mean, Mr. Chair, too, we're, with regards to impact fees, I mean, this is a good thing to have for our actual needs. What exactly do we need to have from a building perspective, and that could impact or make some changes depending on what it is with regards to our impact fees. So I think if we don't have this, we really can't change some of these fees. So that would be a really good thing to have for that.
And I guess I didn't kind of dwell on it enough, but the costs for operating and maintaining these buildings that we have are going to go up significantly in the near future as things continue to get older. Additionally, as we continue to recover economically from the recession, we are going to run out of space. Some departments are getting very tight right now, and there's not a lot of options we have for providing them more staff space. So, we need to start thinking about it now is the bottom line.
Me?
Doesn't matter, either one. Go ahead.
Okay. Supervisor Barrios and I have talked with staff on these issues pretty extensively, and it's a lot more complex than what meets the eye. On this block alone, we have the jail, which at some point in time we'll have to do something with that building. Next door to us is the old communications building, and it's an outdated facility that I don't know what areas of usefulness that we have. So there's a lot of improvement that just looking at walking around this block, we could see we have some issues with the probation department or the DA's office that's sinking probation, and IT is up on Park Hill. We might be looking at this block as far as a possible expansion of the library and so forth. This plan is is a master plan, which is probably over a period of time will be implemented and possibly changed with future boards and so forth. But as stated by the CAO, we can't move forward without something, documented how we want to proceed. And I think the facilities committee would recommend to the full board that this might be an important step in that process, and not to mention the Hall of Records. I don't know if I left anything out, Supervisor Barrios.
Well, I just want to add to it. We, a while back, Supervisor Botello and I met with Brent, and he brought up the idea of a campus philosophy, where we would have our Justice Department, where the jail is, our planning and building, general and administration, all these different health and human services. Instead of us thinking that, okay, let's put this here, this there, and we're not really thinking as a master plan. And 20, 30 years from now, where are we going to be? We're going to be right back where we are, spend a lot of money on repairs and never had a really good plan. So we felt, the facility committee and Supervisor Botello and I and the facilities committee felt that the master plan was a good foundation that we could work off of and not infuse money into things that are not going to fit into this plan. So that's where we're at. So we're recommending that we do have this assessment done. so we can have something that we won't put on the shelf. If it does get on the shelf, it'll be only temporarily while we take, other measures to get there.
It will still guide us, yes.
Are there any questions of staff? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up to some comments from the public. Seeing none, I'll bring it back.
I'm going to be the public for just a moment. Well, I think one of the very important potential elements of a master plan is the implementation part of that. We would get professional advice, not that we're not professionals, but an additional perspective on how to go about fundraising and programming the various improvements over a period of years. Very critical to a plan like this.
Okay, so what is the what is the wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we receive the report and that we direct staff to move forward with with an RFP or whatever it takes to get us going for this assessment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
You have direction. Okay, at this time, we will re-adjourn into closed session.
What's that?
See, Marty, we do work, okay?